Okay, this is the 10-minute drill, episode 2. 10-minute drill is essentially me just attempting to improve my speaking ability and committing to talking in front of the camera and posting it to YouTube every day. Watch the first episode if you want a more in-depth explanation of the 10-minute drill and the reason I've started doing it and where I came up with it, or at least where I got the inspiration from. But this is episode 2, and in episode 1, one thing that I spoke about, a challenge that I predicted having, was coming up with topics to speak about during this 10-minute drill, especially at the start. My prediction was that at the start, because because obviously we all have a very complex life with a lot of different moving parts, as do I, right? And because there's so much different things to pick from, I knew that at the beginning it may have been difficult for me to, specifically choose just one thing to focus on for 10 minutes. And as I guessed, that's something that I'm struggling with right now. I'm not too sure exactly what to talk about, but as I look at myself, I notice a bit of a change. So I'm repping a little bit of a mustache right now. I decided to shave it off, go for more of a clean look. I even shortened the length of my hair a little bit. The reason I kind of did this is because, number one, I don't know what it is, but there's something about the mustache look that I like. It gives me, I think it was maybe the 70s or the 80s where they used to rep this, and it was like the traditional dad who would just have that mustache, and it would be a real symbol of masculinity. I think that's kind of what I'm going for with it. It's that, for one, sort of emulating that, in specific emulating a guy called Daley Thompson, who is a British triathlete who won Olympic gold, or a British decathlete, sorry, who won Olympic gold 2 times and was one of the best ever. So specifically emulating him, and obviously I'm not a decathlete, but I'm an athlete that competes or that trains in many different sports, basketball being the main one, but I like to do a whole bunch of sports. So in ways I embody that spirit of a decathlete and doing a wider array of things. So, repping the look of Daley Thompson kind of makes sense for now with the journey that I'm on. But yeah, number one would be, having the mustache to represent that traditional sense of masculinity. But also, it's kind of like a fuck you. Like, I heard Chris Williamson explain it once in one of his vlogs. If you don't know who Chris Williamson is, he's a podcaster, the host of the Modern Wisdom podcast, which is essentially a podcast for, I guess it is quite a general one, but the main premise of it is self-improvement, I would say. And, exploring different philosophies and ideas that one can implement into their life, different lessons. I guess modern wisdom, to try and find modern wisdom. He uses it, in his own words, as kind of a platform to have one-to-one conversations with experts in their fields. So he gets to learn directly from these people, but then also shares it with others. But anyways, in one of his vlogs, he was speaking to a Olympic weightlifter, not an actual Olympian, but just somebody who was well known on social media for his Olympic weightlifting. So like the cleans and the snatches and the jerks. You may have seen him before, you may not have. But the guy, he was repping a mustache too, and he described it as it's like a mating signal. Basically, what it's saying, a mustache like this is traditionally, obviously, I just mentioned the kind of 70s masculine dad who would rep it, but there's also a lot of negative connotations with it. So I think mustaches can often come off as like a bit creepy, and I would say especially in these more modern times, although it is coming back into trend for sure, Certainly, like a couple of years back, it wasn't really desired by women at all. So by actually wearing a mustache and owning it, you kind of saying that I have so many positive and attractive traits about me that I can still have this mustache and I can still get attention from the opposite sex. That, or I'm completely unbothered by it, which in itself, that lack of need, that lack of want for attention from the opposite sex, then weirdly garners more attention from the opposite sex, kind of, I guess, embodying that tradition, like that, maybe not traditional, embodying that well-known phrase of we want what we can't have, right? So if somebody is signaling that I'm not bothered, then it's like, oh, that means I can't have him, so I want him. So they're kind of the reasons for the mustache. Basically, I think I'm so handsome and such a desirable man, and if I was to have a beard, it would be unfair on the other guys, so I rep the mustache to put me at a slight disadvantage and to give me a challenge when it comes to getting girls. No, but obviously I say all this is a joke, really, because I've got a girl, so I'm not really bothered about attracting other women anyway. But yeah, wow. So we've spent the first 6 minutes of the 10-minute drill speaking about mustaches. But one thing it does lead me into is the secular cycle, the cycle, the I don't know the word for it. This is why I need to keep doing this 10-minute drill. I'm gonna have to make a note of that. But the secular nature of the world and how essentially how things go in cycles, right? And you see this in fashion, but you see this in all sorts. You see it in politics, the way that we all, as a nation or as a world, will like lean to the left and then it kind of bounces to the right. You know, I think we're seeing that now with how there was this big push for, you know, gender equality, and it kept going and it kept pushing to the left, and then it started to go into the transgender stuff. And now I don't know about you guys, but I certainly feel a push now more to the right. Now there's people going for more of those right-wing politics, and I think it's going to go probably to that end, and hopefully it will balance out somewhere in the middle where it kind of considers everybody. But I think more than likely it will start to go even more to the right, and then we'll see it will start to stem into like maybe even racism. And I can definitely see us going into like the groups of races, so blacks, Muslims, Christians, becoming more segregated again. I can just see that happening. But anyways, the reason I even brought that up is because of this secular motion, the cycles that we go through. And that relates to the mustache, because obviously 70s traditional mustache was quite a lot of people repped it. Then it went out of fashion, and if you wore that, you were a bit of like, oh, what the fuck is this guy, what's this guy doing? But now you see more people starting to rep it. Same with the mullets are coming back. So it's an interesting thing, right, how we go around in these cycles, and it's kind of up and down and it's waves. And you can even relate that to even the very fabric of the universe. Now, this is getting weirdly deep. I know I talked about mustache and I just talked about segregation of races. But even the fabric of the universe, like if you really look at things, and I don't want to sound like Terrence Howard, but you see when you look at microscopes and you look at wave patterns, and you start to realize that a lot of things are made up of vibrations. Even as I speak now, the reason you can hear me is because it's bouncing up, it's going in waves. I'm not explaining this the best. This is why we need to keep doing the 10-minute drill. But it's funny how, you know, you look into quantum physics, right? The smallest details of the universe, and you see these waves and these circles and these cycles. And as you expand out, it goes into things like fashion, right? Flares, you know, skinny jeans, cycles, and then it goes out even further into larger ideologies, politics, the general political consensus, and maybe even further out into the universe, and how it all starts off from one small point and it explodes out and then it comes back in. Cycles. So I think that wraps things up nicely. We're at 10 minutes 26 now. This has been episode 2 of the 10-minute drill. I hope you enjoyed this one. It was a bit of a random, weird one. But it feels nice to follow a little train of thought. And before I leave, just leave some comments about the mustache. What are we thinking? But yeah, with all that being said, to the 12 people watching this, I appreciate your time. Be you. Go out there and be you. If you want to rep a mustache, do it. But yeah, with all that being said, this has been 6'5 Lightskin, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.